Hello friends, from today I'm starting new video series on the topic that is respiration. In my previous video series I discussed in detail about the photosynthesis, which is the process responsible for production of all the type of organic food on the planet Earth. The food which is produced by the photosynthesis process in the green plant is used by the animal in the respiration process for production of the energy in the form of ATP. We have seen the general reaction of the photosynthesis, like in a reaction 6 carbon molecule if combined with a 6 water molecule, it will going to produce 1 glucose molecule and 6 molecule of oxygen. In this reaction occur inside the green plant in chloroplast when light energy is available. Okay, and now this reaction, if we write this reaction in reverse manner, then it will become respiration. Okay, plant use carbon dioxide and water for production of glucose and oxygen, while we animal use glucose which is produced by the plant and oxygen for production of CO2 and metabolic water. Okay, so in the respiration process, energy which is stored in the bond of carbohydrate is released due to breakdown by oxidation process inside the animal body, inside the animal cell. And due to breakdown of the glucose with the help of oxygen, CO2 or carbon dioxide release in the atmosphere, as well as metabolic water is produced. And in this breakdown process, large amount of energy is released. Out of the total energy released during the respiration process, approximately 40% energy is used for synthesis of ATP, while remaining 60% energy is lost in the form of heat for maintaining body temperature in the animal. Okay, in the today's lecture I'm going to discuss about concept of cellular respiration. Cellular respiration generally involve two different types, like aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. In this lecture I'm going to discuss both aerobic and anaerobic respiration along with few basic concept related to respiration topic. Actually, many students confuse both the term breathing and respiration. In this lecture, I'm going to discuss these four concepts first before discussing actual pathways. That is breathing, external respiration, internal respiration, and cellular respiration. All these four concepts are different. Okay. First is breathing. What is breathing? This is a respiratory system of the human. Okay, we know that a human respiratory system having nostrils, nasal chamber, pharynx, then larynx or the voice box, trachea or windpipe, bronchi, bronchioles, and two left and right lungs. Okay, this is the respiratory system which is present in the human. Now, when at the time of inspiration, oxygen enter from nostril, nasal chamber, pharynx, trachea, bronchi, and finally end when reach to the alveoli, which is present inside the lungs. Okay, so when oxygen reach inside the lungs, the external respiration occur. Okay, so breathing is the concept or the process in which animal take oxygen inside and leave carbon dioxide outside. Okay, it is called as breathing. It is quite different from the respiration. Okay, now what is external respiration? When oxygen enter from this route into the lungs, the external respiration occur, in which lungs having number of capillaries surrounded by the alveoli of the lungs, and the capillary contain blood. Now this oxygen which is carried by the air into the lung is diffused into the blood, and we know that blood contain RBCs, RBC having large amount of hemoglobin. Okay, so the oxygen which is diffused from the air is bind to the hemoglobin present inside the RBC, and then the hemoglobin convert into oxyhemoglobin. Okay, now the exchange of the oxygen or transfer of the oxygen from air to the blood occur due to difference in the partial pressure of the oxygen. Generally, air inside the lungs contain high amount of oxygen, while blood inside the lungs contain very low amount of pressure of the oxygen, so that oxygen is transferred from the lungs to the blood, and now this oxygen molecule is transferred by the blood from lungs to the tissue. Okay, so the process in which oxygen transfer from lungs to the blood is called second point, which is external respiration. Okay, this external respiration occur after breathing. At the time of breathing, we are going to take oxygen. When oxygen enter into the lungs, it will going to diffuse into the blood, which is present inside the lungs. And blood, hemoglobin, which is present inside the blood, RBC, going to convert into oxyhemoglobin. And after formation of oxyhemoglobin, external respiration complete. Now this oxygen is transferred by the blood, RBC, from the lungs to the tissue. Okay, and we know that animal cell contain 4 different type of tissue like muscular tissue, nervous tissue, connective tissue, and epithelial tissue. And tissue means a group of a functionally related cell. For example, this tissue having different type of cells which are functionally related. Now, when the blood reach to the tissue with the oxygen, again next exchange step occur in which blood from the oxygen from the blood transfer from hemoglobin to the tissue cell. Okay, that means now oxygen which is transported from lungs to the tissue by RBC, hemoglobin, is delivered inside the cell of the tissue. Now to reach inside the cells of the tissue, and this is the third step, which is internal respiration. Okay, and once oxygen reach inside the tissue, now the process started called cellular respiration. And cellular respiration is involved 4 different type of stages which occur inside the cell. The oxygen which is transported from lungs to the cell by blood is used as a terminal electron acceptor in the aerobic respiration process. We are going to see the aerobic respiration process in my upcoming videos in detail. Now, at the time of cellular respiration, which occur inside the cell, 4th step, oxygen is used and carbon dioxide is produced. Okay, now this CO2 which is produced inside the cell is transported back into the blood. Okay, that means blood deliver oxygen and receive CO2 from the cell same time. Okay, and once blood receives CO2, this carbon dioxide molecule is transported back into the lungs. Okay, and when this carbon dioxide reach to the lungs by blood, then this CO2 is transported from blood to the alveoli or the air sac which is present in the lungs. And once CO2 reach in the air sac, then from lungs the CO2 transported back into the air. This is the pathway of oxygen and CO2 transport from air to tissue and from tissue to the atmosphere. This carbon dioxide is carried in 3 different forms by blood from tissue to the lungs. Generally, large amount of carbon dioxide transported from tissue to the blood in the form of bicarbonate ion, sodium or potassium bicarbonate ion. Okay, small amount of carbon dioxide also combined with oxygen, hemoglobin, to form carboxyhemoglobin. Okay, and some amount is transported inside the plasma in the blood. That means this carbon dioxide from tissue to lungs have 3 different routes. First route is in the form of bicarbonate ions. Second route is by attachment with the hemoglobin to form carboxyhemoglobin, while the third route is diffusion through plasma, which is present in the blood. So by these 3 routes, carbon dioxide is transported from tissue to the lungs and then from lungs to the atmosphere. Okay, so these 4 things you have to remember before starting with the actual respiration, that is breathing means the process in which oxygen take in and carbon dioxide goes out. Then external respiration occur inside the lungs when oxygen from the air is transported into the blood, and at the same time carbon dioxide from the blood is transported into the lungs. Okay, it is called as external respiration. Internal respiration occur at the tissue site where the oxygen which is carried by the blood is transported into the cell, while at the same time carbon dioxide which is produced inside the cell is received by the blood. And cellular respiration occur inside the cell. It is the process of actual generation of ATP and breakdown of the food. Okay, so the food we eat reach in the form of glucose inside the cell, and now that glucose is degraded with the help of oxygen which is carried by the blood, and then CO2 is produced. At the same time metabolic water is also produced, and in this process of respiration large amount of energy is generated. Okay, so this is all about the basic 4 steps that is involved in the respiration. In the animal or in the microorganism, two different type of mode of respiration observed. First is anaerobic respiration and second is aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration means the respiration which occur in absence of oxygen. Okay, if the oxygen is unavailable inside the cell, at that time cell undergo anaerobic respiration. This is the process in which very less amount of energy is produced. Approximately one glucose molecule produce 2 ATP only in the process of anaerobic respiration, while same glucose molecule produce 36 to 38 ATP in aerobic respiration. But for aerobic respiration, cell need oxygen. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to discuss about anaerobic respiration and then aerobic respiration. Okay, so in anaerobic respiration, first the complex sugar or the complex food material we eat convert into simple form by degradation. Okay, so complex sugar is converted into simple sugar like glucose by the process of degradation. All the type of food substance that contain macromolecule like carbohydrate, protein, lipid, fatty acids, all these molecules finally converted into simple sugars like glucose and some other component of the anaerobic pathway. Okay, so if complex sugar is converted into simple sugar like glucose, okay, so now one molecule of glucose if enter into the anaerobic respiration, okay, that means total 6 carbon. We know that glucose is a C6H12O6 molecule, so it having 6 carbons. So 6 carbon enter in the pathway. Now glucose undergo glycolysis inside the cell. Okay, in bacteria, sometime in animal or fungi. At the time of anaerobic respiration, complex sugar converted into simple sugar, and then the simple sugar undergo glycolysis. It is the process which is anaerobic. The glycolysis do not require presence of oxygen. It is a 10-step process in which glucose is degraded in stepwise manner to produce 2 molecules of pyruvate. Okay, so at the end of glycolysis, one glucose break down into 2 molecules of pyruvate. Each molecule of pyruvate is a 3 carbon compound. So 3 into 2, 6 carbon. Okay, now this pyruvate produced going to choose 2 different route at the time of anaerobic respiration. You have to remember that glucose converted into pyruvate in glycolysis. In this process, 2 ATP is produced. Okay. Now, the pyruvate, which is 3 carbon compound, either undergo fermentation or from the pyruvate lactic acid is produced. Okay, so what is fermentation? Generally, if the pyruvate is present inside the yeast cell, which is a fungi, in anaerobic condition, decarboxylation occur, and in this process, 2 molecule of carbon dioxide released in the atmosphere by this yeast. Okay, so now 2 molecule of pyruvate having 3 carbon each, that means total 6 carbons are present here, out of which 2 carbon are released in the form of carbon dioxide, so 4 carbon remain, and that 4 carbon convert into ethanol. Okay, 2 molecule of ethanol, each molecule of ethanol is of 2 carbon compound. Okay, so we can write this like 2C2H5OH. Okay, this is ethanol. That means alcohol is produced in the fermentation in absence of oxygen from pyruvate, and in this process 2 carbon dioxide release. Okay, here total 6 carbons are present, and due to release of 2 carbon dioxide, now 2 into 2 carbon molecule, 4 carbons are remain inside the cell. Okay, and they are converted into ethanol. This ethanol or this process which occur in the yeast is mainly used in large number of brewing industries. Okay, in the brewing industries, yeast is used for the fermentation process in which due to anaerobic condition carbon dioxide is released and ethanol is produced. Okay, now second fate of the pyruvate is it can convert into lactic acid. Okay, and lactic acid is a 3 carbon compound. So 2 molecule of pyruvate convert into 2 molecule of lactic acid which having 3 carbon, and in this process no carbon dioxide is released. Okay, this process of lactic acid fermentation mainly occur in the muscle cell in human as well as some bacteria. Okay, in this process also no ATP is produced, so total number of ATP remain 2, which is produced at the time of glycolysis. The pyruvate convert into lactic acid in the lactic acid fermentation in anaerobic condition in the human muscle cell also. We know that when we are doing heavy exercise for a long period of time like 30 or 40 minutes, at that time, blood unable to deliver sufficient oxygen to the muscle cell, because at the time of exercise, muscle cell require high amount of energy. Okay, and if you are doing exercise for a long period of time, at that time sufficient oxygen is not delivered into the muscle cell, and muscle cell transfer from aerobic respiration to anaerobic respiration, and due to anaerobic respiration this pathway is operated in the muscle cell, which produce lactic acid, and when this lactic acid accumulate inside the muscle cell, muscle cramp occur, or muscle pain we can also say. Okay, so due to lactic acid accumulation, these cramps are produced. Okay, this happened due to anaerobic respiration. And in this process, only 2 ATP are produced. That means this process is not economical. But in the absence of oxygen, these organisms or these cells do not have any other option. So they have to undergo anaerobic respiration. And in anaerobic respiration, complex food either degraded into ethanol or lactic acid. This is all about anaerobic respiration. Now I am shifting towards aerobic respiration, which occur in large number of animals in presence of oxygen. Okay, I am taking example of human. If human cell contain large amount of oxygen which is transported by blood, then cell prefer aerobic respiration instead of anaerobic respiration. And at the time of aerobic respiration, the process occur in 4 distinct stages. First stage is glycolysis. Second stage is link reaction. Third stage is TCA cycle, while stage number 4 is electron transport chain. Remember one thing, all these stages occur inside the cell at the time of cellular respiration. I have discussed in detail at the time of this video what is external, internal and cellular respiration. Cellular respiration occur inside the cell with the help of oxygen, and in cellular respiration 4 distinct stages occur. Number 1 is glycolysis, link reaction, TCA cycle and electron transport chain. Here you can find glycolysis is common, okay, in both anaerobic and aerobic respiration. In case of anaerobic respiration, complex food convert into glucose, simple sugar and then pyruvate or pyruvic acid. Same thing happen in aerobic respiration. Complex sugar converted into glucose and glucose break down into pyruvate by the glycolysis. So 2 ATPs are produced, similar to that of the anaerobic respiration in glycolysis process. And once pyruvate is produced, now due to presence of oxygen, instead of going into anaerobic respiration or fermentation, now this pyruvate enter into aerobic respiration. The glycolysis, when glucose enter in the cell, glycolysis take place in the cytoplasm. Remember the location of these 4 stages. When we eat food, after digestion and absorption into the blood deliver glucose into the cell, and then in the cell cytoplasm, glycolysis occur. And during glycolysis, glucose converted into 2 molecules of pyruvate. Glucose is a 6 carbon compound, and we know that pyruvate is a 3 carbon compound. So from 1 glucose, 2 molecules of pyruvates are produced. Now from this 2 molecules of pyruvate, 2 molecules of acetyl-CoA is produced in the link reaction, because this pyruvate cannot directly enter into the TCA cycle or tricarboxylic acid cycle. So first this pyruvate converted into acetyl-CoA, okay, in the link reaction. A special enzyme carry out this reaction called pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. In my upcoming video, I am going to discuss about all these 4 stages in detail. In that case, I am going to focus on this pyruvate dehydrogenase enzyme complex, which convert 2 molecules of pyruvate into acetyl-CoA. In this reaction, decarboxylation occur and 2 molecules of carbon dioxide release. So now 2 molecules of pyruvate having 6 carbon total, out of which 2 carbon are released in the form of carbon dioxide. So acetyl-CoA is a 2 carbon molecule, and from 2 pyruvate 2 acetyl-CoA is produced. So 2 into 2, 4 carbon is present at that point. Okay, now this acetyl-CoA is ready to enter into TCA cycle. We know that Sir Hans Crabbe discovered this TCA cycle in 1937. Okay, then for this discovery, he received Nobel Prize of 1953. This cycle is also called as tricarboxylic acid cycle or citric acid cycle because first stable product in the cycle after entry of acetyl-CoA is citrate. Okay, now this TCA cycle occur inside the mitochondrial matrix. Okay, so when food enter into the cell, cytoplasm is the site of glycolysis. Glycolysis produce pyruvate. Now pyruvate convert into acetyl-CoA in the link reaction which occur in the perimitochondrial space. Perimitochondrial space. Okay, which is the site of link reaction. Link reaction produce acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA enter into the matrix of the mitochondria. Mitochondria is the organ where all the type of ATP is produced in our cell. So we call mitochondria as a powerhouse of cell. And when this TCA cycle occur inside the mitochondria, TCA cycle lead to breakdown of the both molecule of acetyl-CoA which release in the form of carbon dioxide. Okay, so this two molecule of acetyl-CoA having total 4 carbon which is released in the form of 4 carbon dioxide in the TCA cycle. TCA cycle produce reduced energy or electron carrier NADH and FADH. Okay, and now this NADH and FADH enter into the last stage of aerobic respiration which is electron transport chain. This chain is similar at that of the light reaction of the photosynthesis. This electron transport chain is a fourth stage of the aerobic respiration which occur in the inner membrane of mitochondria. And in the electron transport chain, the energy is released due to breakdown of this electron carrier. ATP is generated. Approximately 34 to 36 molecule of ATP is produced in mitochondria during electron transport chain. So total, how many ATPs are produced in the aerobic respiration? 2 plus 34 or 36. That means total 36 to 38 ATPs are produced in this process in 4 stages: glycolysis, link reaction, TCA cycle and electron transport chain. Out of these 4 stages, glycolysis occur in the cytoplasm, link reaction occur in the periplasmic space of the mitochondria, then TCA cycle occur inside the mitochondrial matrix, while electron transport chain occur in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. In my next video, I am going to focus on this aerobic respiration in which glycolysis. Okay, so and the process of the aerobic respiration occurs step by step inside the cell, so energy is released in stepwise manner. Okay, to avoid the damage when if the energy is released in a spontaneous manner at that time cell may get damaged, and to avoid that the energy is released in a stepwise manner inside the cell at the time of aerobic respiration. So in this lecture I discuss about 4 basic steps of the respiration which occur in the human. Then there are 2 basic type of respiration on the basis of availability of oxygen, like anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration occur by ethanol fermentation or lactic acid fermentation which occur in the yeast or muscle cell and bacteria respectively. And the last is aerobic respiration which occur in aerobic organism in 4 distinct stages. In my next video, I am going to start with this point, that is cellular respiration which occur inside the cell, and the first stage of cellular respiration is glycolysis. Thank you.